What can we do to help the birds get through the winter? And,
Yeah,
winter can be harsh and difficult, I think, for birds. So what
it
all
can
can we
be.
do?
There's a couple of things in the wintertime. In the summertime, there's a lot of food for them. Everything's available, and it's not too cold, so they have it a little bit easier. But in the wintertime, they need three things. Same thing humans need, and most living things need: food, shelter, and water. You've got
They
to
don't
have
need
those three
clothing,
things.
but they
Yeah.
most of the things we
Yeah.
need.
Their clothing is a little built in.
Yeah.
But they do need the food, they need shelter to protect them from the elements and from predators, really, and water.
Yeah.
And let me mention water for a minute. We don't think about that as much. Uh, and they need to, of course, drink. And they get some water from what they're eating. But in wintertime, water gets hard to find sometimes, especially when it's below freezing for a couple of days and everything's frozen over. There's no water available for them. So if you can put out some fresh water for them daily in a place that's consistent, you do it all the time in the same place, they'll learn where it's at and come to it. They also need water for one other thing: bathing.
Yeah.
And
They bathe
it's like
during the winter, right?
They bathe during the winter, and there's a real reason for that. And I wouldn't want to bathe outside in cold water, but it doesn't bother them, and they need it to maintain the cleanliness of their feathers, especially the ones under the outer feathers. It's a down coat, and if it gets oily and matted and dirty, it doesn't insulate them near as well as clean, fluffed up feathers, just like
wow.
down.
Yeah.
So they'll get out and bathe. You'll see them in a bird bath. I've seen them with just a little hole. I had a bird bath, had a little heater in it, and there was maybe a 3-inch hole that wasn't frozen, and they'd get right over there and get the water and sling it all over themselves to bathe. So they knew what to do. They just needed some water to do it with. So water is very important for drinking and for bathing, keeping themselves clean.
Yeah.
And food's important, of course. If they don't eat, the rest of it's irrelevant. So bird seed presented consistently in an area for them. Don't move your feeders around too much in the wintertime. Most of your local birds will know where that feeder is, and they'll come looking for it there. So you want to keep the positions, put out some more feeders even. But more important is to make sure they're filled consistently. If they come by every time and the feeder's empty, they don't know when the store is open, they're not going to come by very often, if at all. Then they can't, not going to waste the energy coming to an empty feeder. So just keep, if you don't want to fill it up every time, if you want to be a little easier on the wallet, put half a feeder out and do it at the same time each day or every other day.
Yeah.
So it's always there and they can count on it. You'd be surprised how many birds will show up when it gets really tough out there.
Yeah, one of the things that you've said is how much birds hone in on that location of the feeder. And I noticed with the hummingbirds this year, I would literally went inside to take a hummingbird feeder in to fill it up, and the hummingbirds kept coming to the spot. There's nothing there, but they just kept going to the spot.
Yeah.
Like, where did it
Yeah.
go?
I think
Isn't that funny?
I noticed that some years ago when we were doing experiments with hummingbirds, and I hadn't thought about it too much. But somebody had told me once or twice, I'd heard a few people say, well, the bird came back right to where I used to have the feeder at.
Exactly.
So I decided I'd move it a little bit. And I'd move a feeder 2 or 3 feet down the porch. And the birds would come right to where it used to be, hang out for a little bit, looking, go perch, come back and look again, then go to where we moved it to. They
Yeah.
could see it, but it's not where they wanted to eat. It's not where
Yeah,
their feeder
they've
was.
already checked it out.
Yes.
Birds are really smart. They don't just suddenly go to something. They want to check it out. So it seems like that location, they feel safe.
Yeah.
And something, I've tried that too, where it's
Yeah.
a nearby feeder, but it takes a little bit before
It's
they go
where
to
they
it.
found the food, so
Yeah.
it should be there. And
Yeah.
that holds true with the seed feeders also. So once they get used to it, and if the feeder's there and there's no food in it, that doesn't help one bit. So make sure there's food in it on a very consistent basis and keep it in the location. Don't move it around too much.
Now, did you want to recommend, I know you brought in some food for another, did you want to recommend anything for feeding them during
Yes.
the winter?
What to keep in mind in the wintertime is good quality seed, of course. And it's also very important if you have like sunflower meats mixed in. Something that's a higher energy content, more condensed energy, instead of little shells and all and a little bit of stuff. You get a sun meats, it's a nice bite and it's oily. It's got a lot of energy for them. Also suet products, the cold suet products in the cake form. Also suet kibbles. We have a pelletized type of suet that's really small. You can put that in a bowl type feeder, but if you don't have a suet feeder and hang one of the cakes in it, you can just put this out. You can mix it with your birdseed even. That makes a very good way to supplement their diet with a suet product. Suet, of course, is a fat derivative.
Yeah.
And it's mixed with things like cornmeal or flour, which is also nutritious, and pressed into little cakes. And they'll come and eat that. It makes a great substitute for the insects they're not getting because you get the proteins and oils and calories.